Tanse everyone, I'm Dallas Webpash, and we're back with Create to Learn Round 2. This is the third part of a 4-video series aimed towards prototyping in augmented reality. We're using the Unity and Vuforia combo, and today we're focused entirely on the functional aspects of our augmentation. We're going to animate this augmentation, and have that animation be tied to a button that we can press. In order to do this, we're going to need to rework some things we've done. Mainly, creating a small database of images with Vuforia and importing those back into Unity. We're halfway through this series now, and I couldn't have done it alone. These videos are made for the Create to Learn initiative, between Taking It Global and Imaginative. Follow Create to Learn's Instagram or the hashtag Create to Learn to find more series that teach youth digital skills. The whole world benefits when we're all just a little bit more creative. This series is produced in Brandon, Manitoba on Treaty 2 territory. The land here is the traditional lands of the Cree, Oji-Cree, Anishinaabe, Dakota, and Dene peoples. It's also the homeland of the Métis Nation, and the treaty was made in 1871. You can learn even more by visiting trcm.ca. So alrighty, let's get developing. I think it's important to get our button working first before animating, because the steps we'll take to get our button working in the first place will involve some retooling with the images and how we've set them up, which could be kind of annoying to do if we've animated everything at that point. So this is the opposite way of how I actually did things, and so I think you as a learner are going to be better off. I'm still getting used to Unity 2020, as it's changed since its 2019 version. Vuforia, the augmented reality provider, has also changed, so in order to make invisible buttons that we can press, we'll need to use Vuforia's developer website again. So head back to developer.vuforia.com and log in. This is that same account that we made in the first episode. Ensure that you are on the web page where your licenses are listed, the License Manager. We're creating a small database to use for our images, but these images need to go through the internet so that Vuforia can analyze them and tell us where our buttons should go. So click on Target Manager, where the database of image targets are listed. To recap, image targets are the photos that we're getting our webcams to track. In my case, the tin box with bugs on it. In the top right corner, click on the green Add Database button. Give the database a name and leave it set to Device. Now our database is listed on the website. Click on it and we'll add our photo. Once there, click on Add Target. This is where we'll be uploading our photo. Click on Browse and find the photo in your computer again. Then list its width, once again in centimeters, then give it a name. When you're ready, click on the Add button. Your image will upload, then be analyzed by Vuforia. This could take around 10 seconds. Once that's done, refresh your web browser, and we should have our results back. When the page refreshes, we can see that we were given a star rating. The stars essentially mean how recognizable our image target is. In my case with the bugs, 5 out of 5 stars. I would imagine that the playing card and Christmas card wouldn't have fared out so well here. Click on your image target. There will be some important information here. Click on Show Features. This will turn our image grayscale and displays a bunch of yellow plus signs. These plus signs indicate what our webcam is looking for from our image target. It's telling us, that's what I'm keeping my eyes on, so if my perspective on those things change, I'll make the rest of it change. This is helpful to know because our button needs to be placed in an area that has a lot of these plus symbols. Go back to viewing the database as a whole. Then add any more photos you might need. I'm a simple man who only needs his bugs, so I'm just going to download this database. When selecting a development platform, ensure that platform is the Unity editor. Then hit download. After some time, you get a Unity package file. Find this within your computer files, likely in the download section, and drag it into Unity. You'll be prompted to import all of the files from that database. Basically your photos in a database document. Click on Import to bring them in. Now, create another image target in the scene hierarchy. Right-click, Vuforia Engine, Image Target. Last time, we were using the From Image option as our type, but buttons cannot be added to this. Instead, change this to From Database. Then select the database that you have imported yourself and named. There will be another database from the package we installed in the first episode. In my case, I only have one image target in my database, so that was selected by default. That's alright. Finally, I have my Add Virtual Button option to select under the Advanced section. Add your virtual button. This will automatically create a child game object. This child is called Virtual Button, and when I select it in the scene hierarchy, I can see it as a blue box. You'll notice that you're not able to move this box above and below, but only left, right, up, or down. That's because this button stays tethered to our image target for the sake of our webcam. Using the W shortcut, I'm going to move this square over one of my bugs on the far side because my hand is going to cover this blue button. And it would be awkward if that button was on the second or fourth bug here, because I'd have to cover more bugs in that case, which could potentially lose the tracking. It's best to give this button a name, since you could potentially have multiple buttons on a single image. Typically, I give my first button the name Fire. Then I set the sensitivity to high for the sake of my webcam. Alrighty, so I have two different image targets for the same thing. Alrighty, so we've successfully transported our stuff. Alrighty, so now on to the animation. Remember that discussion on game objects in the parent-child relationship? To summarize, wherever the parent game object moves, so too do the children. And similarly, parents can animate their children, which makes organizing your game objects an important task. Since nothing has been set in stone just yet, consider how your game objects are organized and do some reorganizing if you have to. So we have our stage set, but what if we wanted things to move? I can do so using Unity's animator and animation tree. These are two quite lofty things to learn, but they're as powerful as they are simple once you get to know them. So first, I want to know what I want to move. In my case, my 5 creatures, and maybe the color of the light as well. My creatures are children of the pencil box, but my spotlight is not. I can simplify things by adding my spotlight as a child of the pencil box. It'll take some time for me to realize this. I was going to do this anyway so that the spotlight would follow my pencil box in the augmentation. I want these bugs to move in relation to the physical tin box they're emerging from, the stage they're on. So I'm going to make a cube that imitates the depth of my pencil tin box. To review, right-click in the scene hierarchy, that's the window on the left, 3D object, cube. Resize with the R shortcut, and alter until it looks about right. Press W to move this cube underneath. I'll then rename this real quick by right-clicking in the scene hierarchy and selecting Rename. This is only in my case though. You might be using a completely flat card and you won't need to do this. So now let's animate. To animate a game object and its children, make sure you are selecting your game object in the scene hierarchy to the left, in my case the pencil box. Then head up to the top of Unity, select Window, Animation, then Animation again. This will open up the Animation tab. As you can see, I tried animating this game object already with other children attached to it. I was brushing up on my skills. So I'm going to delete these animations by clicking on them in the left-hand side and pressing delete on my keyboard. And to clarify, this animation window is totally movable to wherever you want. All you need to do is click on the window's name, in this case animation, and drag it where you'd like to be. You can also click on the corners of the window to resize it. This is true for all the windows we have here, the scene hierarchy, the scene game windows, the inspector, lots of stuff. But back to the animation, in your case you'll likely see something like to begin animating, create a new animation clip. So click on that to create a new animation file. Otherwise you can also create clips by selecting the drop down tab near the top left corner of the animation window and name your file according to what the animation does. Since we're using a button to trigger this animation eventually, we need to note that there's going to be a point where we want our animation to be doing nothing. We just want it to sit there. There's two different states our augmentation will have: an idle state, where it does nothing, and a moving state, where things are moving. And these states can be organized into animation clips, and that's what you're making right now. So right now, let's just make one fun moving clip. You'll notice in my case, I have two animation clips for the states I described. My challenge to you is to make another animation clip for your idle state, and name it properly. So I'm going to explain the animator that's here in front of us. I have my moving animation clip selected in the window. There's two animation pathways I'll show you. The first is done by selecting Add Property. This will show you a list of all the things that you can potentially animate. It's a rather large, intimidating list for beginners, but I can see that my creatures are there, and those things are what I want to move. So I'll click on my first creature to drop down its animatable properties. Immediately, I can see that I can decide if it'll be visible or not through the Is Active option. I then see the transform, which retains the position, rotation, and scale of my creature one. Finally, there's a sprite renderer component that will let me change everything the sprite renderer allows me to do. So there's a lot of things, but I just want movement basically. So I'll select transform, then position. I'll do so by clicking on the plus symbol by it. So going down this pathway is great for you if you want to know fully all the things that you can animate inside of Unity. Doing this, I see that two sets of stacked diamonds were placed on the rest of the animation window. The first set starts at 0, 0, 0, and the other at 1, 0, 0. This is the animation timeline, which tells us how animations move throughout time. In this case, the animation is 1 second long. These diamonds are called keyframes, and they represent key moments in our animation. Because of this, I actually don't have to animate my creatures moving frame by frame for only a second that could potentially have 60 frames. The animation moves from one keyframe to the other, and sort of logically determines the movement that needs to happen in between. Finally, there's two sets of these because it would be silly to animate 60 seconds of nothing happening when it could be conveyed through one loop. Once this animation ends and goes through its timeline, it's going to repeat, and ideally, you want an animation to end the same way it starts. Otherwise, you'll get some jittery motion when your animation restarts. To animate, click on the triangle to the left of your game object. This will show you the axis you're able to animate with. Then, click on the time stop at the top of the animation window. Move it to the half-second mark. Then, where your position axes are listed, click on the ovoid shape of the axis you'd like to make a keyframe for. Then, change the value listed here. I'll try something like 4 for my axis to make the bug move backward. Then, I'll click on play to see what that looks like. It's exactly as I said. Using only 3 keyframes, I'm able to create a looping motion this way. So in my opinion, animating this way is kind of boring. The more fun option is to press the red record button. Doing so shows me the timeline in red, which kind of says, we're live! So I'm going to move my time stop back to the beginning. Since this recording is happening on the pencil box game object, I can still animate its children. So I'm going to select all of my creatures at once. In the scene window, I'm then going to use the move shortcut and make a slight movement to make my first set of keyframes. So this is the start of my animation. Notice how many keyframes were made just now. A whole bunch of them. And so now I'll want to move my time stop later down the timeline in order to create a new set of keyframes. I'll move my bugs again at this later point in time, and also press the rotation shortcut to animate their rotations as well. That's with the E shortcut on your keyboard. By moving through my timeline, I can see how Unity has logically made my animation look between these two sets of keyframes. Knowing this is how things work, I'm now going to animate my bugs moving around the depth circle. I need to remember to move my time stop at every point of the animation, or else I'll just be overwriting old keyframes. So remember to have two separate animation clips, because now we'll need to work with what's called an animation tree to work between the two. Highlight the game object that you've animated, then head to Window, Animation, Animator. This will open up another window, and this is an animation tree. To the right, you'll notice a green entry state shown in your animation tree. Ensure that this state links to your idle animation state, because when the augmentation begins, we want it doing nothing until we do something with the button. If you need to, right-click on your idle state and click Set to Default State. This will ensure that your idle state is the very first thing that operates. We need to set a transition from this animation to the one where things actually happen. And to do so, right-click on your idle state and then select Make Transition. An arrow will be tethered to your cursor. You need to click on the other animation state that you want to transition to from here. Awesome. So now create another transition, but from the other way around this time, from the moving state to the idle state. We can actually click on these lines that we've created. We can edit these transitions in terms of how much time they will take up. For me, I want the button to immediately begin the moving animation, so I'm going to deselect Has Exit Time, so that my clip can immediately start playing. Then, I'll lower the transition durations all the way to 0 across the board. You'll notice that doing this gives me a warning. Unity tells me that if I don't have transition time, I need a condition to be met. So, let's make that condition in the first place. In the top left of this window, you'll also see Layers and Parameters. For what we're doing, we'll only need to be concerned with the Parameters window. So, select Parameters. Then, click on the small plus symbol nearby and create a trigger. Give this trigger a name, and we'll then be using this with code right away. So select the transition arrow from the default state and add this new trigger that we've made as a condition. So that was basically 20 minutes going over two different things, and in the next episode we're going to be spending some time working with code so that we can get these animations working together. Aside from that, we're also going to be building our buttons and then building the final thing to our phone, which is going to be totally awesome. See you then.